Am I here?
Oh, there you go. Way! Dr. Ben is in the house.
Is anybody still here?
Yeah, of
Move
course.
this over
Yeah.
here. Okay, gosh, I'm sorry, everybody. Technical troubles.
No.
Okay,
All
is this
good.
work? See me?
Yeah,
Okay.
that
Can you hear
works.
me? Everything's working?
That's good. All good. All
Okay.
good. Awesome to have you here.
I'm looking a little dark on my own screen. Can you guys see me okay?
I think maybe if you turn more towards your window. That way, yeah. That way.
Okay, how's that?
Like that. Perfect.
It looks better for me too.
Yeah, okay, good. Good. All right, so everyone's saying at last, still here. Yes, Dr. Ben. Woohoo! Okay.
Hi, everybody.
That's cool. Well, thank you, Dr. Ben, for being here. I thought maybe we could start with, because I'm sure many of them are interested as well in, the title "Stop Lying." Maybe you could define that or what that means. If we could start there.
Sure. And I want to emphasize something. This is always the first thing I say when I do these interviews. I'm not talking about conscious lies. I'm talking about unconscious lies. This is not the kid with the crumbs on his face saying, "I didn't take any cookies." These are things that we're not aware of. Now, those are the ones that cause the problem that I'm talking about. Okay?
Yeah. Cool. So maybe we can we go deeper into the whole the stop lying and how does that play out, or how does, because I guess because people are not conscious about it, how does it play out in their lives?
Okay. This really started, and by the way, I must give a brief shout out to you for getting me to write this thing, because it's been percolating in my mind for decades, and I needed the motivation to actually sit down and write it and put it into a piece to present to people. I do it in my office all the time. And that growing awareness has been that, first of all, when I was in training, it seemed to me more and more that the therapies were all doing the same thing in different language and with different techniques, and that is uncovering the lies. I didn't have those terms for it. And that more and more I see is true, and that really is the case. There are over 250 therapies out there, and with very, very few exceptions, they all work by helping you catch when you're lying to yourself and when people are lying to you that you're not aware of, and that they may not be aware as well. And that has grown over the past 20 years or so into an understanding. This is really true. I really mean this. Most of our unhappiness, whether it's depression, obsessing, chronic indecision, chasing the wrong people, domestic violence as victim or perpetrator, drugs, alcohol, chronically being unable to love or experience love or joy, getting into fights that we don't mean to, all the things that mess up our lives have at their core, a large cause is that there's unconscious lies. And here's a big part. When we can't stop it, when we've seen that we're doing it and we can't seem to, self-help isn't working, diets aren't working, whatever isn't working, it's because there's an unconscious lie or several, and they may be layered, that's sustaining the problem. And here's the great part. You can probably guess what I'm going to say. When you catch the lie, the symptoms start to go away. It really works that way. The book is full of examples of that. The media, the therapy movies that exist out there all show this process. Think of Good Will Hunting or Ordinary People or Antoine Fisher. Any of these books that have at their core a relationship with a therapist. That's the discovery, is you've been lying to yourself about something.
What about the movie with... What about the movie with Bill Crystal? I can't remember, when he was working with Robert De Niro, who was the mafia boss. Do you remember?
Yes, nobody has ever asked me that. But now that you mention it, I love that movie. That's got one of my favorite street jokes on the planet, and that is they just had a gigantic shootout. They were gonna kill Billy Crystal because he knew too much. He's been the confidant of this mafia boss. And at the end of this shootout, during which Robert De Niro has had this breakdown and breakthrough, this realization of what he really feels, which, by the way, is uncovering a lie that he's been telling himself all of his life. The lie of, I'm fine, I don't need anything. Not true. And you see him sobbing over the death of his father and wanting to talk to him, but he's been long dead. And at the end of the scene, he's saying goodbye to Billy Crystal. He says, I wasn't really going to whack you. And Billy Crystal says, yeah, you were. And he goes, yeah, well, I was, but, I felt very conflicted about it. So, progress.
That is funny.
Your question, I'm sorry. I love movies. I went off. To answer your question, in that movie as well, he develops his symptoms, and the symptoms are the sign that there's an unconscious lie going on. He develops the symptoms, the phobias, the panic attacks, because there's a lie screaming to get out. And the lie is, I'm fine, I don't need anybody, I don't miss anybody, I don't need anything. And of course, it's not true. He's full of pain and full of family feeling, the character in the movie. And the breakthrough, the reason he feels much better, and at the end he goes to a big mafia summit meeting and says, I don't want to do this no more. And he leaves the whole group, is because he's become aware of what he's really feeling, of what he really experiences. So even that lighthearted, fun movie has that thesis in it. And I recommend it to all of you to go see it. A better one, for example, by the way, is Good Will Hunting. There's a case where you really can see that the breakthrough of the kid, the way his life becomes unstuck, and the way he gets out of his depression, is through the realization of what he really feels, not what he tells himself. And any of you who saw the movie may remember, similar to the Robert De Niro character, he says, I'm fine, I don't need anything. I know my father was a jerk, the father who beat him constantly. So I don't care about that. Absolutely not true. The big breakthrough is when the therapist tells him, any of you saw the movie may remember this scene. He keeps telling the kid, all that abuse that happened, it wasn't your fault. And the kid goes, oh yeah, I know. And the therapist keeps saying, no, it wasn't your fault. Because he knows the kid doesn't know that it wasn't his fault, that he's lying to himself. And then the kid, of course, breaks down and sobs and hugs him. And that's when his life changes. And that's when he stops living this depressed life where he doesn't allow himself contact with anyone except this tiny group of friends, pushes away this wonderful girl who likes him, doesn't avail himself of any of the opportunities he has because he's a genius. In the movie, he's some sort of a math genius. He could do absolutely anything. Instead, he stays with his buddies and works as a bricklayer. So, did I answer your question? I'm sorry, I get going on this stuff.
That's good. It's awesome. So, and I'll just let you know that in the summer wrote, you're so spot on there, Dr. Ben. I love Good Will Hunting. Okay, cool. So what do you think? Are there any myths out there that we can dispel today from your point of view when it comes to people wanting to change their lives or transform their lives?
Oh, wow. There are, oh boy, it's tough to generalize because many of us have misguided beliefs. That's partly what can happen to derail our lives. I like what your last person just said, Jackie said.
Yeah, Jackie, yeah.
Folks, it's not rocket science. And that's why this stuff, what I do, psychology, can sound so asinine in the public domain when you see it on Oprah and that sort of thing. Because the great truths, once they're said, sound so obvious to those of us outside of the problem who aren't lying to ourselves about that. It's easy to see it in other people. So I think one of the myths is, well, I already knew that. Why can't I read that in your book, Dr. Ben? Why do I have to go to therapy? Why do I have to have a guide? You may not need a therapist, but you may need a guide. There's an example in the book of a 40-year-old woman who, on a first date, had a real breakthrough because of this person she was talking to on the date who had been a friend. So there was a certain comfort level. It wasn't like a blind date. So it doesn't have to be a therapist, but it does have to happen, as we say in science, in vivo, in life, not abstractly in the mind, reading about it in a book. Excuse me, one second. This air conditioner blowing in my bald head. It's making me cold.
We don't want that.
You can't learn these things just intellectually. and there's many examples of that in the book. You have to experience them, and when you do, it's profound and overwhelming and joyous and liberating and unsettling. And those are the moments that, again, I refer you to these movies, these good movies about therapy, where if you get drawn into the movie, you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about, that the great discovery these people make in Good Will Hunting, the discovery that I really believe my father when he beat me up. I believe that I'm this big, and that's why I'm living this way. In Ordinary People, the kid discovering that he's furious at his brother for dying in the boating accident the two were involved in. He's furious at his mother for treating him badly. He couldn't own any of those feelings. He couldn't acknowledge any of them. Now, we sitting outside, if we write it down, we write down the discovery, we go, well, that's, everybody knows that. It's the difference between intellectual learning and insight, which is in the blood. It's in bowels, as one of my patients put it. You have to feel it in your loins. So you can get help by reading about things and talking about things and going to workshops and going to seminars. You can. But if things don't change, it's because there's a block, and I call that a lie, that you have to uncover. And when you uncover it, your body will change. It's not just up here.
So what do you think stops people from going down the path from discovering their lies?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I think the quick answer is, here's another therapy movie for you. Scent of a Woman.
Yeah.
Al Pacino is the blind retired general or colonel, whatever he is, tells a group of people, I always took the easy path because doing the right thing was too damn hard. And I think that's the answer to your question. It's on the surface, even though when you break through a lie, you feel better, you function better, your life changes. But in order to do it, you have to combat something that's built into our DNA, which says, oh, I got a glare on my face. I see. Let me move.
That's okay.
You have to break through a almost built into our bone marrow that says, don't go there, don't go there. It's going to be awful. You won't be able to tolerate it. It's going to overwhelm you. And again, I'll refer you all because we have limited time. If you see it in Ordinary Good Will Hunting, that kid is devoted to being a tough guy because it's just awful in his mind to break down and sob over how badly he was treated as a child and how inadequate he feels. But of course, once he does that, that's when everything frees up. Here's a great analogy for that I like to use with patients. Any of you people out there who ski may know this. If you're going down a steep slope and you're traversing back and forth, you have to lean down the mountain as you're turning in order to be in control. But every cell in your body is going to scream, I'm going to fall, lean up, lean up. So you lean up, but when you lean up, the skis go out from under you and you're out of control. It's very hard to fight through that very primitive basic instinct and lean down the mountain. But when you do, as any of you skiers know, that's when you ski in control and you can handle something very steep and not go too fast and not fall. So I hope that answers your question. Again, I get going.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So
one of the fun things, and thank you again, Patrick, for getting me to write the book, is that I really love this stuff. And that's what comes out when I talk about it. So it was fun, similar to the skiing analogy, similar to why do we lie to ourselves. It felt so daunting to sit down and write it. But once I did, it's been wonderful. Doing these interviews, traveling around, friends and patients will contact me and say, oh, I read that spot again. And that was so helpful. And every now and then, as I reread it for proofreading purposes, I would read something and go, yeah, there, I finally said it right.
Yeah. No, I think you've done an awesome job with the book, and not only with the book, but how you leverage what you had there as well, and that came about and where you got with it, and do all the interviews around the US but I mean, I really love your perspective on psychology and perspective of how you compare it to could see the red threads in all of them and what was the common denominator that created change or realizations for people. Are there any? Yeah, we were going to say something.
I wasn't quite following you, but I got you at the end there.
Yeah.
The only thing I would like to say is I wish I had given it a different title.
Okay. Why?
If you Google "stop lying," you get 1,000 titles.
I see. Yeah.
And also, "Stop Lying" is the title is "Stop Lying, Getting Unlost and Unstuck in Your Life." It says it, but it doesn't have any poetry to it. It doesn't have any zip. So here's what I'd like to call it. If I ever reissue it, we call it "The Lies That Bind."
There you go. There you go. That might be the next book.
That would be much better. I wish we had done that, but hindsight is 20.
Yeah. So what advice would you give, maybe as a final piece, what would be some advice or steps or thoughts that you could leave with someone who might feel like they are stuck or they might feel like they are lost in life? What are some things they can do?
It's a great question. The dramatic step, of course, is calling a therapist, but you don't have to do that. Do we have some time? I know we started very late.
Yeah, you got some time. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Let me give you the quick example I mentioned of the woman in the bar. The answer to your question is the short answer is what you can do is open up to your symptoms. Be aware when you're doing something that seems a little out of character, when something jars you, when something touches you surprisingly, when something pisses you off surprisingly, when you find yourself incomprehensibly in a mood that you don't understand. That's a symptom. That's something screaming to get out. And then the trick is not to get defensive, not to rush to a solution or rush to say, no, that's not me. And again, let me give you this story. It might illustrate it. This was a 40-year-old woman who had never been in a relationship, substantial one, and yet had lots of friends, very outgoing, very sociable, very socially aware. We're not talking about some sort of shut-in or someone who's socially awkward. She was actually quite graceful, quite socially adept woman, but had never really had a relationship. A lot of her friends were, why? And she went out on this date, and she was in the bar. And I heard this story from both sides of the couple, so I really got good confirmation that this is how it happened. She kept turning away from her date and sort of including the bartender in the joke, whatever they were talking about. But it was a very busy bar. The guy was often carrying 6 drinks at once, and often she was doing this right when the bartender's back was turned. And again, remember, this is not normally a socially awkward woman. So this date, fortunately, brought it up in a way that wasn't threatening. He said, you keep bugging the guy. Is everything all right? You're not usually like this or something. And unlike most of us on dates who would get defensive and say, oh, I'm just having fun and stop judging me and leave me alone and I'm going home, she didn't do that. She stopped. And you can see that just my demonstrating it, I stop. I slow down and I quiet down and I say, well, what am I doing? It's not like me to badger a bartender in this way. And I keep turning away from this guy that I want to be on a date with. And as soon as she quieted down, she told me, she realized how scared she was because she really liked the guy and she had liked him for a while. And she really wanted it to work. And of course, she had this history of not being able to make a relationship work. As soon as she realized all this, the need to flee the guy by turning to the bartender and going, yeah, how about that? Went away. And she stopped doing it. And she stopped pushing away the guy and just in general being annoying. And they had a very good run. They were together about 9 months. That's how. And the trick is you have to not get defensive, which all of us, especially us guys, want to do. Take an interest in the odd things about you. Take an interest in your pet peeves. I've always had one. That's a great little example. People who scrape their heels when they walk, hear that sound. It's always just grated, it gets into my skin. So finally I sat down and said, okay, Dr. Ben, what is this about? And I let myself just relax. And the Freud's term is free associate. Where do I know that sound from? What does it remind me of? Well, guess what? It reminds me of my father. my big, strong, scary father, who to me was like Mount Rushmore. Um, but he'd put on his bathrobe and he'd sort of traipse around the house with his reading glasses and his newspaper, and he'd make that sound. And it was very jarring because I needed him to be Mount Rushmore. Now, that's as far as I've gotten with it. I can't tell you any more, but I promise you there's much more. There's more feeling. There's another lie to uncover. But that's as far enough as I care to go. It's not that important. I don't get homicidal when I hear somebody do it. It's not that important. But it is a good example of how a pet peeve means there's something I'm not telling myself, and it has something to do with, and I'm still working on this, acknowledging how fragile my father was, and therefore,
Mm.
we need us guys especially. We really need our strong fathers, and this is something I'm still working on. I haven't really completely fleshed it out, but that's why 20, 30 years ago, when I did this little thought experiment, um, uh, and I was much less sort of evolved along the path of dealing with fragility and the fragility of me and my father and my life and everything. So it was a bit more of a revelation. Does that answer the question? Again, I get going.
No, I love it. I love it. Go where it goes. No, but thank you for sharing and being open. I'm thinking, I had a thought, but that disappeared. I was going to ask you
Can I give you
something, but
another one? Can I
yeah,
give
go
you another
ahead.
one?
Yeah,
This
love
is a
it.
great
Go.
one. When I was a little kid, I just thought of this. When I was, I don't know, yeah, very young, I used to love the TV show The Odd Couple. It's from a Neil Simon play. It's about two divorced men who are roommates, and one of them is a sports writer, and he's happy-go-lucky, and he's a slob. He's always throwing things around. And the other is a rather fussy, nervous, I forget what his profession is. And it's The Odd Couple for that reason. And I loved the show. It was funny, good show. But I could sense somehow that my love of it was similar to this thing where I say it's a symptom. Like it's not a pet peeve; it's the opposite. It's a pet pleasure, I suppose.
Mm.
So years and years later, when I was Dr. Ben, I gave myself that same thought experiment. Well, what is this? What is this doing to me? What does this remind me of? And a whole bunch of things came out, which I'm not proud of, but I'll share them. I had a girlfriend when I was about 25 who said I was fussy. It's not something I ever thought of myself. I thought I was cool. And she
Mm.
gave examples, and she's right, I am fussy. Um, and there have been other little things like that where I've realized I'm more like Felix, the fussy roommate, than Oscar, the casual, happy go lucky slob. But in my head, and here's the lie, I'm not fussy. Oh no, I'm relaxed. Now, why is that important? Because that's part of a bigger lie that I had to climb out of, which is similar to a lot of us guys. I'm fine. Things don't bother me. Oh, yeah, I'm cool. Not true. Um,
Yeah.
so I hope that gives you an example. Something as seemingly trivial as a sitcom that I liked can lead to stuff at the core of who I am and what stalls my life. And that's why I'm going to go on one more tangent. That's why people ask sometimes, how do I start my session? Doesn't matter. Start anywhere that's alive and real to you, even if it's last night's ball game, or in my case, last night's episode of The Odd Couple. Because if your heart's in it and you just talk about it and you have a good guide, the conversation will go somewhere incredibly profound and useful. As you like to say, Patrick, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think absolutely. And thank you for sharing. I think you gave a lot of people insights and deeper thought with your examples as well. So I appreciate that. So I thought maybe with a final question, and it's
The sun
just
keeps
out of
moving.
just out of my curiosity as well. So what about, because I know you have quite a comprehensive website, with a lot of articles, and obviously you're very passionate about your field. But what is it about what you're doing that you love?
Great question. Teachers, sometimes if you ask a teacher why they teach, why they love it, and they'll tell you that look you get in somebody's face when they get it. You teach
Mm.
30 kids math and it's frustrating, but there's one kid who goes, it's a lot of it's that it is a
Yeah.
tremendously if you haven't experienced this, it's hard to put into words, but it's deeply gratifying when somebody when you help somebody climb out of their misery. And then there's the thing of, it's the most personal thing you do with people. It's so intimate. It's so it fills this very basic need that we really have to be connected to each other, like it or not. And again, think of all the examples I've given: Robert De Niro, Good Will Hunting, me. We all like to think we're independent, especially us guys. And anthropology teaches us, of course, we're not. Primates live in groups. Dogs live in packs. A little boy, let me grab this over here and show you what I mean. A little kid who's just learning to grasp something gets a hold of this and they do this. They don't hold it up to themselves. They don't say, like little Jack Horner who sat in a corner, what a good boy am I. They go to the next person, to the parent, to the babysitter, to the nanny. Look, look, look. And we need each other. That's a very primitive, basic need. So that it fills that for me, and I got on a tangent again, I know. It fills that. The other thing is, and I want to be very honest about this, most of us who go into this work went into it also because, as I alluded to a little bit, we had our own problems to climb out of, our own lies to uncover, our own pain to undo. And I grew up in a bit of a nutty place, not terribly, but bad enough. And I'm a very sensitive type of person, so it was a bad mix. And I didn't have any guidance. I didn't. If I'd had, sort of an uncle or a cousin or a big brother who could have put an arm around me and said, "Yeah, Dad gets like that. Don't worry about it," things might have been different. But I really needed to understand what this is all crazy. What is this? What am I feeling? What are they doing? So, as often you hear people who work with weight loss will tell you that it helps them to work with other people, helps them maintain their own focus on being healthy, to help others. So I admit it does that for me too.
Yeah.
Did I answer you? Again, I got going on so many.
No, definitely.
One of the great things for me about doing therapy is that you must not talk too much as a therapist. So it keeps me focused. If you ask me questions and you let me run, I'll just talk forever.
It was a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Ben. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, and because I know you're doing, not just the work, but acting and setting up opera or something coming up for you as well.
Life's too short for one. I'm going to be 57 next month, and I am at my age in only my second role in an actual opera. I've been acting all my life, but at my age to be doing opera, it's just crazy. It's great fun. And I must thank you once again, Patrick, for getting me to write this book and for putting this Transformation Summit together. I've referred people to it. I hope you've gotten more healers. I've sent some people there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much for your work, Dr. Ben. And for everyone watching right now, you can go and watch Dr. Ben's segment show on transformation.tv. It's www.transformation.tv. You can go there and watch it. You can also go and buy the book, Stop Lying, and do that. Stop lying. Any final thoughts, Dr. Ben, before we finish?
Final thought: you won't find Stop Lying by Googling that name. So you have to Google. The easiest thing is to Google my name or to go to my website and buy it there, which is www.aboutpsychotherapy.com.
There you go.
Aboutpsychotherapy.com. That's the easiest way.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't forget the www.
No, right.
All right. Awesome. Well, it was really nice connecting with you, Dr. Ben. Appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again. And I think that's it for now. Anything else you want to say before I finish?
So much, but no, I guess not. Thank you very much for being here.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome, Dr. Ben.